A struggling girl asks a billionaire, "Can I have your leftovers?" What happens next is unreal. Lily stood at the entrance of the upscale restaurant, a world of shimmering chandeliers and glistening marble floors. A buzz of laughter and clinking glasses swirled around her. Rich folks draped in designer clothes, discussing stocks and vacations in hushed, excited tones. Yet her heart pounded with a different kind of urgency. Hunger gnawed inside her like a fierce animal. She hadn't eaten in days, and her stomach rumbled as if protesting this humiliation. Amidst this sea of wealth sat Oliver, a billionaire renowned for his sharp business acumen and icy demeanor. Alone at a table draped in crisp white, his plate still half full, he looked every bit the leading man in a movie, imposing and impossibly magnetic. But behind that facade was a man haunted by shadows, a man who felt loneliness in crowded places, just like Lily. Taking in a deep breath, she pushed through her fear. "Excuse me," Lily began, her voice wavering but loud enough to slice through the ambient chatter. She locked eyes with him, a spark of desperation flickering within her. "Can I have your leftovers?" A hush fell. Gasps rippled through nearby tables. Oliver turned, his eyebrows shooting up in surprise. For a moment, he scrutinized her as if she were an enigma he needed to decode. Then, a slow smile broke across his face. "Why not? Join me," he said, motioning for her to sit. She hesitated, eyes wide. This was surreal, but hunger and curiosity abounded. She slid into the seat across from him, the rich aroma of gourmet food filling the air, a stark contrast to her own reality. As they began to eat, tentative at first, Oliver's guard lowered. He reveled in her unfiltered honesty, clearly refreshing in his world of polished interactions and shallow exchanges. With every bite, they shared pieces of their stories, their pasts spilling over the table like wine. Lily spoke of her struggles, the grief hidden beneath her bravado, the losses overshadowing her youth. Oliver, in turn, opened up a little about his own battles, corporate enemies lurking in shadows, betrayals that left scars deeper than any wound. And yet, there was a palpable energy between them, a magnetic pull that felt dangerously familiar. She felt safe in his presence, despite the walls built high around him. With every laugh and shared secret, the fantasy of two disparate worlds colliding seemed more possible. But just as the laughter echoed, a shadow flickered across Oliver's face, a tightening around his mouth, a tremor in his hands. Lily noticed, her heart skipping. What were the dangers behind that smile? As their meals dwindled, the night pressed closer, and the weight of her truth hovered between them, forcing the air thick with questions unasked. Who was she really? And what hidden ties did she share with his corporate battles? The look in Oliver's eyes confirmed it. This was only the beginning of a journey fraught with mysteries yet to unfold. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up, and since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you walking from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Just as the weight of their shared truths hung in the air, a sudden crash shattered the moment. The restaurant's entrance burst open, slamming against the wall. A woman stumbled in, wild-eyed and gasping, her clothes disheveled, as if she had just run a marathon through chaos. "Oliver!" she shouted. Drawing gasps from around the room, the name sliced through the atmosphere like a knife. Oliver's expression shifted, shock mingling with recognition as he stood. "Rebecca?" The name barely left his lips, heavy with dread. Lily felt a ripple of confusion. Who was Rebecca? Flurry of whispers swept around their table. Curiosity turned to apprehension as people leaned in, their forks frozen mid-air, eyes darting between the two. Oliver's demeanor morphed, his carefree laughter now replaced by a tight, wary expression, like a man cornered by his past. Before he could respond, Rebecca continued, her voice trembling. "You have to listen to me. It's about the merger. It's all a trap." Oliver's face paled. "What are you talking about?" Panic flooded his features, turning the formerly confident billionaire into a vulnerable figure. She rushed forward, hands gripping the edge of the table. "I didn't realize it until I saw the documents. They're planning to frame you, Oliver, if you go through with it. You'll lose everything. Your company, your reputation." Lily's heart raced. This wasn't what she expected. Oliver's world, one she had momentarily slipped into, was suddenly crumbling right in front of her. She wanted to pull back, to escape this whirlwind of secrets and danger, but her curiosity held her captive. Oliver snapped his gaze toward Lily, fear flickering in his eyes. "Stay here," he urged, but his voice lacked conviction. Rebecca's urgency escalated. "You don't understand. They're not just after your company. They're coming after you. Someone wants to hurt you." Shock slapped the faces around them, the weight of her words hanging like thunder. A murmur of disbelief swept through the crowd, a trembling wave of tension. Just then, the lights flickered, once, twice, before plunging them into darkness. Gasps erupted, panic rippling through the room. Lily's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of fear, spreading like an electric charge, igniting the air around her. She was anchored to her seat, heart hammering. In that darkness, it felt as if the walls were closing in, the opulence of the restaurant morphing into a cage. When the lights sparked back to life, chaos ruled. Oliver was gone. The table was empty, except for the untouched plates and a crumpled napkin with something scrawled on it. Rebecca's eyes widened, and before Lily could process it, she lunged forward, snatching the napkin. "Where did he go?" "We need to find him. What's happening?" Lily felt confusion spiraling. The air thickened with dread. "Someone knows, Lily. Someone's been watching." The intensity in Rebecca's voice shook Lily to her core. Lily's mind raced. Could this stranger be telling the truth? And what did Oliver face now? What sacrifice was he willing to make to save his empire? Or was this all a game played around her? Suddenly, the restaurant doors flung open again, and a figure emerged from the shadows, someone Lily recognized but never expected to see. The night was far from over, and the secrets just unfurling begged to be unraveled. Who could she trust now? And what was lurking just beyond the shimmering walls of wealth and desperation? Lily's heart raced as chaos filled the room. She could barely process Rebecca's frantic warnings. The fine dining setting transformed into a battleground of nerves and suspicion. The lights flickered one last time, and then darkness. Panic pulsed through the crowd. Murmurs erupted into anxious whispers as the restaurant's elegance crumbled into uncertainty. The clinking of forks and glasses faded into silence, replaced by the sound of ragged breaths. It was suffocating. When the lights returned, Oliver was gone. Just like that, poof. Only a cold emptiness remained at the table. The crumpled napkin Rebecca snatched flickered in her trembling grip, the last reminder of what had just been. Lily blinked, trying to comprehend the dizzying turn of events. "Where could he have gone?" she murmured, dread crawling up her spine. Rebecca's eyes were wild, searching, desperate. "He can't be far, if this is true." Her voice trailed off into a sobering silence. But as Rebecca pocketed the napkin, her gaze sharpened, and she turned toward the entrance. The door swung open once more, revealing someone unexpected. It was a figure cloaked in shadows, face partially hidden. A murmur rippled through the restaurant as everyone turned to look, even those still seated. The figure stepped into the light, and the collective gasp was thunderous. It was Jenny, Oliver's sister. The whispers grew louder. What was she doing here? Lily's heart dropped. Jenny. looked out of place yet undeniably fierce. "What are you doing here?" Rebecca spat, her voice tinged with outrage. "I'm here to save him," Jenny shot back, voice unwavering. "Someone's been spying on us. They're planning to expose him." Exposed? The word hit Lily harder than she expected. The questions morphed into screams echoing in her mind. What did Jenny know? "Who's behind this?" she blurted, feeling the weight of the tension seep into her skin. Jenny took a step closer. Determination etched on her face. "You don't understand. This isn't just about Oliver's company. It's about family, our family's legacy." "Your legacy?" Rebecca challenged, hands on her hips. "That's rich coming from you. You were the one. Who turned your back?" But Jenny's gaze didn't waver. It glinted with a fierce resolve. "I didn't have a choice. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. After Mom died, everything changed. I had to protect our inheritance." Lily's chest tightened. "Inheritance?" Secrets dripped from every word. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, voice barely a whisper. Oliver had never mentioned this, any of this. "They know about the merger, and they know about what happened to Dad before he died." Jenny paused, her breath hitching. "And they're using it against us." A chill raced down Lily's spine, racking her with unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that Rebecca, Jenny, and Oliver were tangled in a web of deception, and she had unwittingly stumbled into the middle of their crisis. Before she could digest this revelation, a loud crash echoed from the back of the restaurant. All heads turned, hearts racing. A group of men burst through the kitchen doors, dark suits and angry faces flashing like lightning. Lily's gut twisted. This was not just a conversation anymore. This was dangerous. "Hands up," one shouted, a glint of metal shining ominously in his hand. As chaos erupted, everyone stood frozen. Panic morphed into terror. How deep did this go? What had she really stepped into? This was no longer just a meal shared between two worlds. It was a battle for survival. In the midst of the commotion, she caught a glimpse of Jenny. The look on her face was both terrified and determined. "We need to find Oliver, now." But just as they turned to escape, Lily felt a hand grip her arm, rough and firm. She looked up and everything shattered yet again. The face wasn't Oliver's. "Going somewhere?" the stranger snarled, and in that moment, all hope of clarity slipped away. The grip on Lily's arm was like iron, and the panic surged through her like wildfire. She turned to face the stranger, the blur of chaos swirling around them, and froze. There was something familiar about him. His eyes, deeply shadowed, held a cold intensity that felt oddly personal. "Her go," shouted Rebecca, her voice trembling but strong. The tension thickened, a tightrope stretching between fear and retaliation. The men in the suits were closing in, shadows moving with menacing purpose. But the stranger leaned in, lowering his voice almost conspiratorially. "You don't want to be here right now," he said, his breath hot against her face. "There are bigger forces at play." A knot tightened in Lily's stomach. Bigger forces? What did that even mean? Her heart raced, panic mixing with confusion. "Who are you?" she managed to choke out, her pulse hammering like a drum. The stranger chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Names don't matter. What matters is that Oliver is more than just a businessman. He's in deep. And you're in over your head." Rebecca stepped closer, fists balled at her sides. "We need to find Oliver. If you know something, tell us." But before he could reply, chaos erupted. The men charged forward. Rebecca ducked and lunged for the nearest exit, but the door swung wide, and another figure entered, the restaurant manager. "Everyone, please, stay calm," he bellowed, hands raised. But Lily felt anything but calm. Her heart raced. Eyes darting from the stranger to Rebecca, to Jenny, who looked frozen, shock crossing her features. Suddenly, the stranger's gaze shifted. "We can't stay here," he said urgently, voice low. "They'll come for Oliver's family next." Lily's mind spiraled into confusion. Family? Was he suggesting that she was tied into this too? Memories swirled. Oliver's guarded smiles, whispers of lost legacies, family discussions over dinner that seemed too guarded. "Wait, what do you mean?" she managed, voice rising above the chaos. But before anyone could answer, the ground trembled. An earthquake? The lights flickered again, and the ominous shattering of glass made everyone scream. Shouts filled the room, but Lily stood still, feeling the world tilt beneath her feet. Then, without warning, the front door slammed shut and locked with a resounding click. The air turned icy. "What the hell?" began Rebecca, but the stranger had disappeared, shadow swallowed by the frantic crowd. Panic surged, like a tidal wave. People stumbled backward, scrambling for exits that were no longer available. Suddenly, a figure appeared outside the window. A man, face partially obscured. He raised his hand, revealing a flash of something metallic. A gun? Lily's heart dropped. A wave of shock rippled through the restaurant. Silence followed, then chaos again. The muffled screams became a blur of sound. Rebecca screamed, "No, don't, get down." In that split second, as everyone dove for cover, Lily's gaze met Jenny's. In that brief exchange, something shifted. An understanding formed. But what was it? The secrets that had been simmering beneath the surface were about to boil over. Oliver's family, a well-guarded legacy, and now, a potential threat looming outside, ready to shatter everything. A jarring thought pierced through her panic. Were they all part of the same dangerous game? Before she could think, the sound of footsteps rushed in as the man outside yelled something unintelligible. The lights flickered again. This time they faded into darkness, pulling them into an abyss of uncertainty. And in that heart-stopping moment, Lily realized she was not just an observer anymore. Whatever was going on, she was now part of it. But what did that really mean? And who could she trust when everyone seemed cloaked in deceit? As blackness enveloped the room, fear clawed at her heart. What had she stumbled into? And would they survive whatever was coming next? Darkness engulfed the room, swallowing every flicker of light. The silence was suffocating. Lily's heart pounded like a drum, drowning out the frantic whispers echoing in her mind. She could barely breathe, her body frozen in fear as chaos erupted outside. The metal glinting in the man's hand haunted her thoughts, sparking a primal urge to flee. "Get down!" Rebecca screamed, her voice a knife cutting through the panic. They all ducked beneath tables, hearts racing, fast breaths mingling. The whispers morphed into muffled cries as the tension snapped. What is happening? Just then, a sharp crack filled the air. More chaos. Another crash followed, and the restaurant's heavy doors burst open. A wave of shadowy figures flooded inside, dark suits and sinister grins. Lily's pulse surged. Were they after Oliver? How was this happening? "Lily!" Jenny's voice tore through the panic. She grabbed Lily by the arm, urgency burning in her gaze. "We have to go, now." But as she moved, a loud shout echoed. "You!" On the floor, a man with a gun stepped forward, his face a mask of authority. The weight of his threat hung palpable in the air, sending shivers down Lily's spine. She felt the world tilt, everything spinning as fear clawed at her throat. "Stay calm," the manager shouted again, but the lie was obvious. They were trapped, like animals in a pen. And in a moment of desperation, something shifted. The flickering lights flashed, and then silence plunged them back into darkness. Lily felt the pressure of the crowd's fear murmur around her. Then it happened. A scream, a piercing, raw scream that cut through the silence like glass shattering. The lights flickered back on just as suddenly, and what Lily saw next froze her in shock. The gunman lay on the floor, his face pale against the marble, eyes wide in betrayal. But it wasn't just the sight of blood that gripped her. It was the figure standing over him. Oliver, he was there, but something was wrong. The light caught a wildness in his eyes, a darkness, twisting his features. He held the gun. "Oliver!" Rebecca's voice trembled, a rush of relief and disbelief. "What?" "Get away from her," he shouted, his voice cutting like a blade. It held a furious edge, a desperation that sent shivers down Lily's spine. She stared, mouth agape. "Please, let's just talk about this." Jenny stepped forward, but Oliver pointed the gun at her now, an accusation wrapped in fury. "Talk?" he spat, eyes wild. "After everything, you think I can trust anyone?" The room fell silent. Shock washing over everyone. The questions hung thick in the air. What had she stumbled into? Lily pulled back, heart crashing. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Oliver was no longer the man she had shared a meal with. The billionaire, isolated in his wealth, was now a drowning man, clinging to his last breath. The darkness around him was real. And in that moment, everything shifted again. The stranger's words returned. Bigger forces. Bigger than just business. Who was Oliver really? The answers slipped through her grasp. Just then, an ear-splitting crash reverberated through the restaurant. The front windows shattered, sending shards flying. "Out! Everyone out!" shouted one of the men. But Oliver held his ground, eyes torn between rage and fear. Lily trembled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She was at the eye of a storm, fear slamming into her, pushing her closer to the truth. "Oliver, please," she begged, trying to reach him. But it was too late. The shadows had claimed him. "Get back," he yelled, and the world fractured around Lily. She felt the weight of decisions pressing down. There was no going back. A loud roar erupted outside. An explosion? Smoke coiled through the room, wrapping around them. Lily's world spiraled into chaos, and as everything fell apart, one question echoed above the din. What had they really become? Darkness engulfed the room, swallowing every flicker of light. The silence was suffocating. Lily's heart pounded like a drum, drowning out the frantic whispers echoing in her mind. She could barely breathe, her body frozen in fear as chaos erupted outside. The metal glinting in the man's hand haunted her thoughts, sparking a primal urge to flee. "Get down!" Rebecca screamed, her voice a knife cutting through the panic. They all ducked beneath tables, hearts racing, fast breaths mingling. The whispers morphed into muffled cries as the tension snapped. What is happening? Just then, a sharp crack filled the air. More chaos. Another crash followed, and the restaurant's heavy doors burst open. A wave of shadowy figures flooded inside, dark suits and sinister grins. Lily's pulse surged. Were they after Oliver? How was this happening? "Lily!" Jenny's voice tore through the panic. She grabbed Lily by the arm, urgency burning in her gaze. "We have to go. Now!" But as she moved, a loud shout echoed. "You!" On the floor, a man with a gun stepped forward, his face a mask of authority. The weight of his threat hung palpable in the air, sending shivers down Lily's spine. She felt the world tilt, everything spinning as fear clawed at her throat. "Stay calm," the manager shouted again. But the lie was obvious. They were trapped like animals in a pen. And in a moment of desperation, something shifted. The flickering lights flashed, and then silence plunged them back into darkness. Lily felt the pressure of the crowd's fear murmur around her. Then it happened. A scream, a piercing raw scream that cut through the silence like glass shattering. The lights flickered back on, just as suddenly, and what Lily saw next froze her in shock. The gunman lay on the floor, his face pale against the marble, eyes wide in betrayal. But it wasn't just the sight of blood that gripped her. It was the figure standing over him. Oliver. He was there, but something was wrong. The light caught a wildness in his eyes, a darkness, twisting his features. He held the gun. "Oliver!" Rebecca's voice trembled, a rush of relief and disbelief. "What? Talk?" He spat, eyes wild. "After everything? You think I can trust anyone?" The room fell silent, shock washing over everyone. The questions hung thick in the air. What had she stumbled into? Lily pulled back, heart crashing. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Oliver was no longer the man she had shared a meal with. The billionaire, isolated in his wealth, was now a drowning man clinging to his last breath. The darkness around him was real, and in that moment, everything shifted again. The stranger's words returned. Bigger forces. Bigger than just business. Just then, another explosion rocked the building, rattling the glass and sending everyone to the floor. The walls shuddered, dust and debris rained down, and all eyes went to Oliver, who was now frozen on the spot, gun trembling in his hand. Through the chaos, a figure slipped through the doorway. Someone small, almost childlike. It was a girl, no older than 10. "Daddy," she cried, rushing toward Oliver. "Emma?" His voice cracked, suddenly filled with fear and vulnerability. Lily's heart sank. This child was his daughter? The restaurant dissolved into a frenzy. People screamed and pressed against the walls. Oliver's expression shifted entirely, and the gun trembled in his hand. "Get back," he yelled, flicking his attention to the girl. "Get behind me." But she was unbothered. She jumped toward him, eyes wide, as if she hadn't understood the danger. "I was scared," she whimpered, reaching for him. Everyone held their breath. The sight of the child broke Oliver, the cold exterior shattering like glass. He dropped the weapon, hands outstretched. "Emma, sweetheart, it's okay. You shouldn't be here. Dot." And in that moment, chaos gave way to a hush. But reality crashed back when the lights flickered. A hidden force stirred from the shadows, and a familiar figure stepped into the dim light, a sly smile on her lips. "Oh, how touching," the woman purred, her voice laced with malice. It was Vanessa, the CEO of a rival company, the very one behind the merger. "I see you found the real treasure," she sneered, her eyes glinting. "Your family, Oliver. But now, we'll play my game." Lily's blood ran cold. Trying to process the web unfolding before her, she felt the ground shift beneath her. Everything came crashing down, Vanessa continued, eyes scanning the turmoil. "And guess what? You brought them all here. This is just the beginning." Oliver's face paled, shock washing over him like a wave. In a twist too brutal to process, Lily realized it wasn't just the corporate dealings at stake here. It was family, the legacy that Oliver had fought to protect, now positioned against him, colliding with every fear he'd hidden. Before she could comprehend the implications of Vanessa's declaration, the lights flickered one last time. With one final crack, darkness enveloped a thick fog, amplified by the chaos erupting outside. She pushed her back against the wall, trying to remain unseen. "Oliver, please." Rebecca's voice cut through the darkness, her breath palpable with fear. The night felt too surreal, like a nightmare where the stakes kept rising. Suddenly, the lights flickered again and shot back on, illuminating the room in a stark cold glow. The sight sent a jolt through Lily. Oliver stood there, wild-eyed and frantic, gun still in hand, but now he wasn't just holding it towards them. He pointed it at Emma, his little girl. "Daddy," Emma cried, her voice cracking. Desperation flooded Oliver's features. "Stay back, Emma. I can't let them hurt you." But the moment shattered. As the gun trembled, the atmosphere shifted. The doors crashed open again, and a menacing figure stormed in. Vanessa, looking even more ruthless under the harsh light. She locked eyes on Oliver and grinned, but there was something different in her expression. Control. "Thought you'd get away that easily?" she taunted, her words dripping with malice. "Too bad. Everything you love is about to fall apart." Just as panic set in, a loud crash echoed from above. Everyone froze. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the ground trembled under their feet. A gaping hole appeared, blocks of ceiling collapsing, and from it, a figure descended, a man in dark clothing, mask pulled over his face, dropping like an avenging shadow. "Get down," he roared, arms outstretched, directing the chaos. And then, in a voice as sharp as ice, he shouted, "Get Oliver. Bring him to me." Time froze. Lily's breath hitched as the realization hit her like a freight train. Everyone turned to Oliver, the air heavy with disbelief. The man had the urgency of an executioner, and Oliver's face twisted in horror. "No," he yelled, backing away with Emma clutched in his arms. I won't let you take her. No. Jenny's voice broke through the noise. Not Emma. You can't hurt her. And then, in a horrifying twist, the man in black threw back his hood, revealing a face Lily recognized. Too well, her heart dropped. It was David, Oliver's business partner, the one whose loyalty was unquestioned, the one who had always stood beside Oliver through thick and thin. David? Oliver barely whispered, shock suffocating him. What are you doing? David grinned, a twisted satisfaction etched on his features. Oh, Oliver, this whole time you thought I was your ally. While you built an empire, I was plotting your downfall. You see, one doesn't just lose everything overnight. It takes time and patience. Gasps emerged from the crowd, and the atmosphere thickened with confusion and fear. Why? Oliver's voice cracked. You were my friend. Friend? David spat, eyes blazing with betrayal. You never saw the bigger picture. It was always about the company, never the family. I did this for my own legacy. I want everything you've built. And now, it's time to take back what's mine. In that instant, all the pieces fell into place. This was never just about a merger. It was about power and control, a fight for survival in a world that craved domination. Lily's mind whirled, processing this devastating reality that offered no safety. Stay away from him, Lily shouted, trembling yet resolute. But David turned to her, a wicked grin plastered on his face. Oh, sweet girl, you really think you matter in this game? You're nothing but a pawn. You've already sealed your fate. Lily swallowed hard, his words hung like a knife, piercing through her confidence. And then the lights flickered again, but not from the restaurant. A distant explosion shook the ground, sending everyone reeling. Panic erupted anew, bodies rushing to and fro in desperation for an exit. David shouted something, but it was lost in the fray. Oliver's gaze darted around, finally resting on Lily. Lily, we need to get Emma out of here. But as she looked into his eyes, filled with despair and fierce determination, something changed within her. She knew this wasn't just about escaping. It was about fighting back against the dark forces closing in on them. All the secrets, all the lies, were unraveling. Would Oliver rise to the surface again, or would they all drown in this treachery? And in that moment, the weight of uncertainty pressed down. Every decision felt monumental, and the night was far from over, as the air crackled with a tension that promised more upheaval. What would happen next? Who would survive this whirlwind? The chaos swirled around them, but Lily couldn't tear her eyes from Oliver. The fierce look in his eyes was chilling. Desperation etched deep lines across his forehead. Emma, he shouted, voice cracking like glass. The little girl stood rooted, eyes wide, uncertainty wrinkling her small brow. Get behind me. Lily wanted to throw herself forward, to shield them both, but dread kept her, feet glued to the ground. David's smug grin darkened the room. Fear coiled in her gut. Is this your new family? He sneered, gesturing toward Emma. You might want to rethink your priorities, Oliver. She won't save you now. I won't let you take her. Oliver's voice shook with anger and fear, a father's rage igniting within him. Oh, but you've already set the pieces on the board, David countered, his tone dripping with satisfaction. Even your beloved sister is foolishly trying to save you. Isn't that right, Jenny? Lily flicked her gaze to Jenny, whose face was a mask of shock. What do you know? Jenny asked, voice trembling. The room seemed to shrink as David laughed, low and rich. Everything, he taunted. You think you're the only one with secrets. There's a reason I was always behind the scenes. Secrets run deeper than blood, dear sister. The air crackled with tension as Sandra, the manager, stepped forward, brave yet trembling. What are you saying? You're not family, David. You're a traitor. But David simply raised an eyebrow, smirk playing at the corners of his lips. Family? Such a quaint notion. Before they could react, a thunderous crash erupted from the far corner of the restaurant. All heads turned as a huge figure stumbled into view, dark coat swinging, face hidden beneath a hood. It was a man Lily didn't recognize. "Stand back," he boomed, voice powerful, cutting through the rising panic. "Stay where you are." The newcomers surged forward, and chaos erupted again. People screamed, some huddling behind tables, others clamoring for safety. The man advanced, eyes sharp and calculating. "Oliver, we need to go," he barked. But Oliver remained frozen, caught in a twisted web of loyalty and fear. "Who are you?" In that moment, the hooded figure pulled back the hood, revealing not another stranger, but their father. The resemblance was unmistakable. Everyone gasped, shock coursing through the crowd like electricity. "Dad," Lily breathed, unable to process. "Is it really you?" Yes, he stepped into the light, and dread filled the room. All of this, it was a dot setup. David's expression morphed quickly into rage. You've been alive all this time? And you thought I wasn't watching?" Their father's gaze pierced through David's bravado. "Don't play games with me. You wanted my empire. Now you'll find it's not as easy." Reality twisted, and Lily felt her breath hitch. The father she thought was gone was really alive, orchestrating his own plans, while they all drifted in the dark. "Oliver, we must go. Now," their father urged, voice rising in urgency with a sense of purpose. But Lily's heart raced. To Oliver, not understanding the whirlwind around her. Then, as if breaking the tension, a loud crack sounded just outside, and the lights flickered again. What was going on? Everything they thought was solid now swayed, like a ship caught in a storm. Suddenly, the restaurant trembled, walls shuddering. A heavy sound rumbled from above. The ceiling cracked, a fracture splitting the stability they clung to. Dust poured in like a thick fog, an explosion of chaos, bringing more screams. What were they tangled in? And just then, Lily recognized the enormity of their situation as shadows began to seep through the cracks, dark figures emerging, growing dangerously close. "Run!" her father shouted, instincts kicking into gear. But as they all surged toward the exits, ready to flee the collapsing chaos, Lily felt a sudden lurch in her gut. If this was a game, they were caught in the crossfire. "They're coming!" David shouted, panic cracking his facade. Through the din, an unsettling realization dawned. Who could be trusted when every relationship was on the knife's edge? Suddenly, in the confusion, it clicked into place. All the pieces of the puzzle she'd missed. The smiles, the glances, the hidden motives. All of it entangled as they faced an enemy they never saw coming. And just when Lily thought it couldn't get worse, she caught her father's gaze. A look of steely resolve mixed with something darker, something that bristled with secrets long held. As she turned to follow, the ground beneath them began to tremble, threatening to swallow them whole. The last shred of their comfort unraveled, flipping their world upside down. Now, with the truth heavy in the air, darkness loomed. What would they become in the aftermath? Who could they trust when shadows of betrayal danced all around them? The storm had only just begun. The ground shuddered again. A deep rumble that shook the very walls of the restaurant. Dust and debris cascaded from the ceiling. Panic twisted like a knife in Lily's chest. They needed to get out now. "Everyone out," her father shouted, urgency coursing through his voice. The word everyone felt heavy. Lily glanced around, faces etched with fear and disbelief. Each moment stretched, thick with tension, as memories collided with the present. "Emma, hold tight to me," Oliver yelled, arms wrapping protectively around his daughter. She clung to him like a lifeline in a storm. Still bewildered, Lily felt a surge of adrenaline. She had to move. "This way," she called, darting toward the nearest exit. But as she turned, David's mocking laugh sliced through the chaos around her. "You think you're escaping? You're just running into more darkness." The words sent a shiver down her spine. There was no safety in that statement. The shadows felt alive, creeping close. Was there an exit at all? Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through the chaotic darkness, illuminating a figure standing at the shattered doorway. A young woman, wild hair flowing like a banner, appeared, eyes blazing with purpose. "Get out of my way," she shouted, charging into the fray. It was Tessa, Oliver's estranged sister, the one everyone presumed had vanished. She'd been the family's golden girl, lost in the shadows of their ambition. Everyone froze, disbelieving. "What are you doing here?" Oliver's voice shook, disbelief lining his every word. "I came for you," Tessa declared, breathless, shouldering past the wreckage. "I found out everything, about the merger and David." Panic mingled with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Lily managed, heart racing. Tessa's eyes swept the room, warnings lighting the anger on her face.
"He's not who you think he is. He's been playing both sides. You're all in danger."
Every heartbeat crashed like a wave. The weight of her words hit them like a dart to the chest. At that moment, the gunshot rang out, a sharp crack slicing through the tension. Someone screamed, glass shattered. The rush of air felt electric. Lily gasped, eyes darting to Oliver, who stood frozen, Emma wide-eyed beside him. David let out a savage grin as he pointed toward Oliver. "Your end is here, brother." But before anyone could react, Tessa lunged toward David, knocking the gun from his grip. It skittered across the floor. The room spiraled into chaos, bodies colliding, confusion erupting like a volcano. Lily's breath hitched. It couldn't be. Tessa was here, alive, and in the mix was the shock of betrayal. An ally turned enemy. "Stay away from my family," Tessa shouted, fierce and unyielding, fury flashing in her eyes. David, momentarily stunned, regained composure. "You were supposed to be gone. We had it all planned out." His voice was icy, filled with rage and fear. A confession loomed above them, twisting everything they thought they knew. Lily's world flipped. "Planned out?" Oliver croaked, voice laced with disbelief. "What does that even mean?" "Everything," David spat, venom in his tone. "I wasn't just after you, Oliver. I wanted the entire legacy, but you got in the way." "It was never about the business, was it?" Tessa growled, eyes blazing. "It was always about controlling us, your own family." And then, as if the world was tearing itself apart, another explosion rocked the restaurant, dust swirling in thick clouds around them. The ceiling cracked again, heavy chunks of debris threatening to fall. "Run!" Tessa cried, pulling Oliver and Emma behind her. But just as she turned, Lily's heart plummeted. In that flash of chaos, she saw David's fierce gaze shift toward her. "Lily, you don't know everything," he hissed, voice low and threatening. Before she could process that chilling truth, another figure slunk in. From the shadows, a face she recognized too well. It was her mother, the very person they had believed to be gone forever. "Lily," she cried, reaching out, eyes wide with urgency and a past loaded with secrets. Stunned silence fell. Everything collapsed into itself. Who was lying? Who was the true enemy? The lines blurred, trust fractured into shards, leaving Lily dangling on the edge. As her mother stepped forward, revealing things no one could predict, a question hung in the air. What had they all been hiding? The gust settled slowly, thick and suffocating. Faces were painted with disbelief, just as shadows of betrayal loomed around them, clawing at reality. Lily's heart raced as she tried to reconcile the sight of her mother standing before her. It felt surreal, like a scene pulled from a twisted movie. "Mom," she managed to whisper, shock twisting her voice. The room reverberated with gasps, eyes darting toward her mother, waiting for an explanation that never came. "Lily, we have to leave," her mother urged, urgency crackling in her tone. "There's no time for questions." But before anyone could react, another explosion rumbled in the distance, rattling the building as debris rained down. The ground shook. Emma cried out, seeking refuge behind Oliver. Instincts kicked in, even as confusion swirled. "Stay close," Oliver barked, his hands tight around Emma's shoulders, yet his gaze remained fixed on David, who was reeling from his own unraveling. The world seemed to tremble with anticipation as confrontations churned like a storm. "You think you can just come back?" David sneered. But Tessa stepped forward, her presence commanding. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Her voice was fierce, every word a dagger. You've played your last card. Lily felt a wave of hope seep into the crevices of despair. We can face this together, she managed. But her voice cracked against the chaos. What's your plan? David quipped, eyes darting to the exit. You can't escape your fate. But it wasn't their fate that mattered. It was the bonds that were finally surfacing. The lights flickered, and a wail of sirens filled the air, drowning out tension. Time seemed to freeze. Oliver looked at Lily, their eyes locking with an intensity that spoke volumes, unearthing both promises and fears. Now, his father called, urgency layered beneath each word. They moved, weaving through the wreckage as the chaos around them morphed into a surreal dance. David lunged, desperation radiating from him, the last vestiges of control slipping away. This isn't over, he shouted. But his threats fell hollow against the frantic escape. Lily and her mother hurried forward, arms intertwined, a fusion of strength reaffirmed. Together, they burst through the main doors just as the restaurant's ceiling cracked again, sending fragments showering down, a final gasp of defiance. Against the chaos they had lived through. Outside, lights from police cars illuminated the chaos looming behind them. The cries of terrified patrons subsided into the background hum of sirens and shouts, fading like distant thunder. Is everyone all right? Jenny gasped, breathless. They're gone, Tessa. David will not follow, Oliver reassured, the flicker of determination blazing anew. But it was Emma's hand, clutched tightly in his, that spoke volumes. This was family, fiercely carved from fear and pain. The souls gathered together were no longer just victims of circumstance. They were united. Lily turned to her mother, the weight of everything crumbling into sacred clarity. Why now? Why didn't you tell me earlier? She needed the answers, the truth that was wrapped in layers of deception. Because I needed you away from it all. I wanted to protect you, her mother whispered, tears glimmering like sunlight through storm clouds. All that we did, it was for your safety. In that raw moment, as vulnerability mingled with love, Lily understood. In the wake of darkness, the light illuminated the way forward. As they stood together, a testament to resilience against betrayal, a promise flickered in the air. They wouldn't let the shadows consume them, not again. Together, they had a new beginning to embrace. With the echoes of an explosive past fading behind them, they stepped toward the future, uncertain but undeniably free. And just as they took those first steps into the light ahead, Lily whispered to herself, "We'll find our way back, no matter what." And now, you have to subscribe right now. Don't miss a single moment of the upcoming exclusive stories that will take you on even more wild journeys. Smash that like button right now to keep the support flowing and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. I want to hear what you think. And if you love stories like this, don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. This is the moment to show your support.